Good afternoon, Com 600. It's Ben Frazier. Hope you're doing well today. And I don't know what it's like where you are, but it's a nice rainy day here. Times it's clear, times it's raining. But at any rate, 600, we're doing well. I've looked at your responses, and of course, Dr. Ward has given you feedback on those, and responding to you and reading them over. And so I think that's beginning to go well. It's better this week than last. Just wanted to give you a heads up. There's an assignment due by next Monday. Notice we have the 8-week period. A week starts on a Monday and it ends on a Monday. And so there's a transition time when you're finishing a week and starting a week on a Monday. And just so you remember, the critical review, and I call it in a couple places a critical chapter review, and I should have been calling it a critical book review. So just for you to note that errors was made in I think in page 12 of the syllabus. But the emphasis there is not just review, it's a critical book review. And so what you need to do is the first third or first part of the review is just what are the major. You can't go over the whole book. It's impossible to do it all. So what do we want you to do? We want you to take 2 or 3 very important ideas that come out of your reading of the book, and you mention those, and just briefly deal with those. Okay, then you do, and this should be the major part, a critical analysis of that. And what are the strengths? And by critical doesn't necessarily negative. Critical can be just insights and ideas that you wrestle with there. Sometimes you will say, this could have been stronger, or this would have been a better put a different way. But then other times you're saying this is really stated well, and he articulated this well. So what you're looking at, what is he missing? What is he saying that is useful, and those kinds of critical insights and analysis. And then the third section is integration. And by that I mean, how does what and you're not able to criticize somebody until you understand him from the author's perspective. Now understand him from your perspective, but you first understand him. This is what, in this case, it'll be Quentin Schultz. Quentin Schultz says about shalom, or about communication, or whatever it is. Then the next point is, here's what I think, and here's my criticism of this is what by really interrogating the text. Okay, then you say, how does this fit to what we know about communication? Does this advance other theories, advance other scholars' work? I would say at the least you should have 4 and perhaps more references in your review. So 3 to 4 pages, no longer than 4 pages. 3 pages is fine if it's very, very good. A review, but that's short, only about a half a page. And then I would say the lion's share goes to the critical analysis, and then an integration. So what does this say? 2 or 3 paragraphs on what does this say to us? And so I'm really looking for those 3 parts. Dr. Ward and I are really looking for those 3 parts so that we can see that you not only understand a work from the author's perspective, but that you can creatively and critically analyze it, interrogate it, and then you find the good, challenge that part that is not as useful, and then show how it integrates into our areas of expertise. Okay, so APA style, no less than 4 references, 3 to 4 pages. The very latest, it's due the evening, 11:59 of January 30th, which is next Monday. It's a very good read, but it's a tough read. Not as tough as the next one, but I recommend Quentin Schultz's book for you. It's really very good for our area. Okay, you've been writing, of course, on Freud and Lewis, and I think that you were very good in that. You noticed some parts about the relationship, some similarities of Freud and Lewis, some differences of them, and I think that's helpful. What I wanted to do is just introduce to you a little bit about Quentin Schultz and his work. Quentin Schultz has been a scholar for many years. He worked under Clifford Christians, and who is really one of the best Christian scholars in communication in our area. Quentin is a very prolific writer, and this is one of his, it's dated. In fact, I just talked to him at NCA, National Communication Association, and he is updating that book, and so we should be getting a new version of that within a year or so. And so he's challenging us to look at the role of communication in the life of the Christian and the life of the church, and how then we should communicate. And I really think, and I hope that you read carefully that book. It should be useful. I love his idea that he brings up there of how we should be gracious in our communication behavior, and generous in our communicating and sharing. And then finally, so I don't want to give you a whole lot there because you're going to be responding to that this week, both online and then with your review. I'll put a place, well, you already see it. There's a place up there for you to attach your document. I think it's in the content section down where it says assignments, and you go in there and you'll see where you place it. It'll go through the check to see if it's plagiarism and that sort of thing. It will go through that automatically. Now, I want to talk just for you, just a minute with you about Christ and culture. And one of the things that this class does is it looks at culture and it looks at the work of Christ, and it tries to integrate those two things. And of course, there was a great book several years ago called Christ and Culture by Niebuhr. And in that book, he suggests 5 ways of looking at the relationship between Christ and culture. First, he says Christ against culture. And let me just say, all 5 of these ways have some strengths and have some weaknesses. And so we need to understand that. But perhaps just by going over there and for me mentioning it will help you begin to think about culture, because what do? We move from story, popular culture to worldview. So we're always looking at culture in this class. And so first, Christ against culture. Christ is the sole authority, and the claims of culture alone are to be rejected. Our culture is interrogated through the claims of Christ. And so our culture may say, oh, this is the right way to live, or this is what is valuable, but we need to look at that in relationship to what we find in following Christ in Scripture. The second is Christ of culture, and that takes the idea that God is working in every culture, in every country, even pagan cultures and pagan countries. There is the work of God behind that, and it's called common grace, that God is working. And that's why we'll see later on that myths and stories in every culture, and I have collected some from around the world, speak about God and of his purposes and being. Now, not complete. Only the Christians have that full knowledge and their understanding. But certainly every culture has some understanding and some truth. And so the Christ of culture, that every system is not apart, every culture is not apart from the work of God. Second, Christ above culture. And this sees the reception of grace that perfects and amplifies culture through seeing that Christ is above, and we're trying to lift culture in that way. The fourth way is Christ and culture in paradox. And that sort of way says, well, culture's here and our Christian faith is over here, and there's just no way to reconcile some of that. It's just it's beyond our ability to understand. Authority there is a tension there that we then accept, and you can see that there are some things like that in culture that just you see both of those areas, and you don't see how they can fully be reconciled sometimes. And then finally, the Christ, the transformer of culture. And here we see Christ working in culture. And this is probably the one that Niebuhr in this book privileges more than the others. Not that it's perfect, but that Christ is trying, and Christians are trying in working within our culture, those ideas and beliefs and behaviors and products that we have, trying to bring them and transform them and put them in line with the purposes and the renewal of God in our world. So, great book. By the way, there's another book written after this, many years after this, that kind of calls some of this into question. I won't have time to go into that this time, but I'm certainly aware of it and have read that book. I still find this useful, but there's more. And hopefully throughout this class, we'll be able to bring some of those other ideas. I hope you have a good week. My time is up. God bless you, and I hope you really enjoy this book by Quentin Schultz this week. Bye-bye.